The Boy Who Grew Flowers, written by Jen Wojtowicz and illustrated by Steve Adams. Rink Boagan was a boy from the deep country. He lived out past where the blacktop road became a dirt road and the dirt path petered out into a little footpath. The path wound through the ancient trees of a wild forest hop Black Bear Creek and headed all the way up to Lonesome Mountain and made a right-hand turn and right smack into the Boagan's door. The Boagans were the only ones who lived on Lonesome Mountain, and the townspeople argued as to whether it was because they were strange folk or whether it was because they lived there that made them strange. However, everyone agreed that Boagan clan was a hotbed of strange and exotic talents. Rink's Uncle Dud liked to tame rattlesnakes, and his brothers and cousins were all shapeshifters. But Rink himself was the most special talent of all. During the full moon, he sprouted flowers all over his body. It was a beautiful sight. They were the prettiest, sweetest smelling, and longest lasting blossoms you've ever seen. Some folks might stay home sick if they happened to sprout, but not Rink. Every morning, following a full moon, his mama would gently clip the flowers from her body, and off he would go to school. Now Rink liked school. At least he liked the thinking and reading part. But he was shy and quiet and different from the other children, so the teacher gave him a seat at the back of the classroom and did not bother with him. As for the children, they all had heard stories about Rink's strange relatives, so they stayed at a safe distance from him. But then Angela Quiz came along, a girl whose family was in the ballroom dancing business, had just moved from Tuscaloosa. She was what some would call a plain girl. She had an easy manner, a luminous smile, and her right leg was shorter than her left by a whole inch. She always wore a flower behind her right ear, and Rink really liked her straight away. So did everybody else. Angelina was always surrounded by friends, and Rink observed her from a distance. She's always forthright and honest, and always kind. He also admired the flowers that she wore behind her ear. A different one every day, all of them lovely as she. As for Angelina Quiz, she soon wondered about this quiet boy who sat alone in the back of the class. So she asked the other children about him. His Uncle Dud has a pet rattlesnake called Fat Lucy, and she sleeps on this end of his bed. And his mother uses a bowling bag for her purse. And his granny was raised by wolves. Won't anyone talk to him? One afternoon, the teacher announced that the school dance would be held Saturday night at Church Hall. Several of her classmates asked Angelina to go, but she smiled bravely and shook her head. I wouldn't be much of a dancing partner. Rink was struck by the wistful note he heard in her voice. She comes from a dancing family. I bet she loves music. I bet she'd really like to go to that dance. The minute the teacher's back was turned, Rink slipped out the door, and no one noticed except Angelina, who glanced back at his empty chair every now and then. She was amazed at how his absence could take the shine away from her pretty sunny day. She liked him. When Rink reached his home high on Lonesome Mountains, he went straight to his uncle's room. He rummaged under the bed and came up several feet of Fat Lucy's shucked-off skin. Ugh. Next, he dug through Mama's bowling bag until he found a needle and a spool of silk. Then the tumble-down shed off to the kitchen, and he turned up an old leather mule saddle. Rink sat down and cleared his mind. He thought about Angelina's feet. Then he pictured their shape and size and every inch of her right foot and the floor. Then he cut and stitched and glued. And he worked right through Saturday and Sunday afternoon, all day and all night, until Saturday morning. When Rink was finally done, there on the table stood the loveliest pair of slippers. The sole slipper was a little thicker than the left, so Angelina could stand true and tall. He imagined her dancing. He thought and thought so long, and the feeling deep inside was so happy and pleasant that even though the full moon had not yet risen, he sprouted a bunch of wild pink roses from his head. Then that afternoon Rink followed the footstaff down all the way through the small gate and walked to the little patch that led to Angelina's front door. Angelina was helping her mamma sew a fancy new tango dress. The whole house was quiet, and every little snip of scissors made a sad little tweak in her heart. She thought about Rink and how she would miss him all day at school on Friday when he had disappeared. When Angelina heard the knock at the door, her heart flipped. There stood Rink with a bunch of wild pink roses in his hand and a pair of snakeskin slippers. "These are for you," he said. "If you wear these, you'll dance just fine." Angelina wrinkled her bare toes into the slippers. For the first time in her life, she felt she could stand up straight. She took one step, then another, and she did a little practice dance, and Angelina looked up with delight. "Will you be my dancing partner?" she said. "I don't know how to do that kind of dancing," Rink said. "I'll teach you," cried Angelina. "I've watched my family so many times, I know all of the steps by heart." And she took his hand, and they danced together down the path. After the dance, Rink walked Angelina home, and they stopped and sat under a button ball tree. Angelina told Rink about her family, and he told her about his family. And then, with a pounding heart, he revealed to her that he sprouted flowers all over himself during the full moon, and Angelina smiled with delight. Then she bent down and showed Rink where the flower she wore grew out of the bottom of her ear. From that day on, Angelina Quiz and Rink Boagan were fast friends, and she wore her snakeskin slippers every day. And when she wore them, he would make another pair. And he was making all of her shoes for 25 years now. The two of them have been on the house up in Lonesome Mountain. Only these days it's called Sweet Blossom Hill. Gardening is how Angelina and Rink earn their living. Actually, it's a family business. You see, every one of their 7 children was born with a green thumb. The end.